So when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. How dreadful it will be in those days for pregnant women and nursing mothers. Pray that your flight will not take place in winter or on the Sabbath. Matthew 24. The woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God, in which she is to be nourished for 1,260 days. The woman was given the 2 wings of the great eagle, so that she might fly from the serpent into the wilderness to the place where she is to be nourished. Revelation 12.
The Book of Revelation. I mean, just the name itself conjures up these wild, powerful images, doesn't it? You've got dragons, stars falling from the sky, these epic cosmic battles. For centuries, it's been one of history's greatest puzzles, a book just filled with these surreal, unforgettable visions.
You know, when you open up Revelation, you are hit with these incredible, almost psychedelic images, right? A 7-headed dragon, stars falling from the sky, cosmic battles. It makes you wonder, where did the author even get these epic scenes? Were they just pure imagination, or were they anchored in something real?
And that is where this whole idea comes in. This theory suggests that the author of Revelation didn't have to just invent these horrors out of thin air. He had a real-world blueprint to draw from: the absolutely brutal Roman siege and total destruction of Jerusalem.
Okay, so to really get this connection, we need to jump in our time machine. We have to go back to the 1st century and look at the brutal war between the Roman Empire and Judea, a war that led to one of the ancient world's greatest catastrophes. What's just so striking about this timeline is how incredibly fast things spiraled out of control. It all kicks off in AD 66, a revolt against Roman oppression. But within just 4 years, by AD 70, the holy city of Jerusalem is surrounded, it's starving, it's tearing itself apart from the inside, and then it's completely destroyed. And you know, we don't have to guess what this was like. We have a vivid, boots-on-the-ground account from the historian Flavius Josephus. And he wasn't writing some prophecy. He was a journalist, documenting the horrors he saw with his own eyes. And his descriptions, they paint this absolutely harrowing picture of a complete societal collapse. And the human cost, I mean, it is almost impossible to wrap your head around. Josephus estimated that over 1 million people were killed. Now, okay, even if that number is a bit of an exaggeration, the scale of the carnage was catastrophic. It left this deep collective scar on the memory of an entire generation. So the big question is, how does this historical trauma actually show up in the Bible? Well, this is the really cool part. When we lay 3 different sources side by side, the prophecies that came before the event, the historical accounts of the event, and the visions that came after, some really stunning parallels start to pop. So our first point of comparison is a classic feature of any apocalypse story: strange and terrifying signs up in the sky. The atmosphere right before Jerusalem fell was just thick with this sense of impending doom. And this slide just lays it out perfectly. Look at this. On the left, in the Gospels, you have Jesus' prophecy about signs in the stars. On the far right, you have John's vision in Revelation using almost the exact same language. And then, right there in the middle, you have Josephus, the historian, grounding it all in reality, reporting on phantom armies in the clouds and a sword-shaped star hanging over the city. It's uncanny. But the parallels weren't just in the sky. They were also deeply, deeply human. They reflect the absolute terror and desperation of the people who were trapped inside that city as the Roman armies closed in for the final kill. Okay, get this, because this is the crucial point. The prophetic language of people wishing for mountains to fall on them had a real, horrifying counterpart in history. Josephus tells us that people were literally trying to hide underground in sewers and vaults just to escape. So the vision in Revelation takes that real human desperation and just blows it up to a cosmic level.
Okay, picture this. The year is 70 AD. After a long, brutal siege, the full might of the Roman army, led by General Titus, just descends on Jerusalem. And they don't just conquer the city, they completely, utterly level it, leaving its magnificent temple in a pile of rubble. And here's why this event was so profound for the early Christians. For them, it wasn't just some random tragedy. No, they saw it as the fulfillment of a specific prophecy. About 40 years earlier, Jesus had warned his followers, when you see armies surrounding Jerusalem, get out. So, in 66 AD, when the Romans first showed up and then mysteriously pulled back, the Christian community took that as their signal. They fled to a town called Pella, and because they did, they completely escaped the final destruction in 70 AD. That prophecy acted as a literal survival guide.
So, the history of 70 AD, that's our first key. But to really get how this event was understood, we need our second key. You see, the author wasn't just writing about history, he was writing in a much, much older code that his first readers knew by heart, the symbolic language of the Old Testament.
The author, John, he doesn't just invent things out of thin air. He masterfully weaves hundreds of references and allusions from the Hebrew scriptures right into his vision. It's like this rich, dense tapestry of meaning. To even begin to understand Revelation, you have to see how deeply its roots are planted in this ancient soil.
Okay, so what? What does this all mean? Why did understanding Revelation this way matter so much to the early church? And, what's the takeaway for us today?
Well, for them, this experience basically cemented four huge foundational beliefs. First, it proved that Jesus was a true prophet whose words could literally save your life. Second, with the physical temple gone, it drove home the point that the true temple was now the community of believers themselves. Third, it was tangible proof that obeying God's word brings real-world protection. And finally, it gave them a terrifying, unforgettable preview of what a final judgment could really look like.
And when you see it this way, the whole purpose of Revelation kind of shifts. It becomes less of a crystal ball for trying to predict specific future events, and way more of a practical guide for endurance, for faithfulness, for navigating a world that feels like it's descending into chaos, which is something its first readers knew all too well.